Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 18, the battle between Lord Bor and Hiranyaksha, and text number 3. Ahena mehi yagna mahim vimunchano Rasau kasam vishvasrijeyam arpita Na swasti yasyas yanayamamekshataha Suradhamasadita sukarrakrite. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The demon addressed the Lord, O best of the demigods, dressed in the form of a boar, just hear me. This earth is entrusted to us, the inhabitants of the lower regions, and you cannot take it from my presence and not be hurt by me. Purport. Sridhara Swami, commenting on this verse, states that although the demon wanted to deride the personality of Godhead in the form of a boar, actually he worshipped him in several words. For example, he addressed him as Vanagocharaha, which means one who is a resident of the forest. But another meaning of Vanagocharaha is one who lies on the water. Vishnu lies on the water. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead can be properly addressed in this way. The demon also addressed him as Mrigaha, indicating unintentionally that the Supreme Personality is sought after by great sages, saintly persons and transcendentalists. He also addressed him as Agna. Sridhar Swami says that Gna means knowledge, and there is no knowledge which is unknown to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Indirectly, therefore, the demon said that Vishnu knows everything. The demon addressed him as Suradhama. Sura means the demigod, and Adhama means Lord of all there is. He is the Lord of all the demigods. Therefore, he is the best of all demigods, or God. When the demon used the phrase, in my presence, the implied meaning was, in spite of my presence, you are completely able to take away the earth. Na swasti yasyasi. Unless you kindly take this earth from our custody, there can be no good fortune for us. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. So this chapter, the battle between Lord Bor and Hiranyaksha, we have been reading how the two demons, Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, took birth of Kashyap and Diti, and they were actually Jaya and Vijaya in the spiritual world, in the Vaikuntha world, and they fell down. Jaya and Vijaya got the birth of Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu because of the offense they committed towards the four Kumaras, the offense of not allowing the four Kumaras to enter into Vaikuntha to meet the Lord. They did not recognize that these four Kumaras, although they had very small body, they were like childlike personalities because of their mystic power. They did not recognize them and they denied entry, thinking that, oh, these are just four ordinary boys, how can they meet the Lord? And because of that, they were cursed and they fell down. And the Lord said that you will go back, you will go to the material world and you will return very quickly back to my abode. So this is their first birth, Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. And there was a plan of the Lord, why he arranged all this thing, because the Lord wanted to fight, and who else than his devotees come to this material world to fight with him, because no ordinary person can fight with the Lord. So that's how Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu took birth. And this chapter is describing about that point has come where the fight will begin. This whole chapter is about that fight. The battle between Lord Bor and Hiranyaksha. So this is a very interesting verse. If you see here, Prabhupada in this purport is writing on how Sridhar Swami is commenting on this verse. And the whole purport, the whole verse is the demon Hiranyaksha is trying to blaspheme the Lord, but actually unconsciously, unintentionally, he is not blaspheming the Lord, he is praising the Lord. Very interesting analysis by Sridhar Swami which Prabhupada writes. Like for example here, in the word-to-word meaning if you see, Sura Adhama, one of the words that Hiranyaksha uses to call out the Lord, you are Suradhama. Adhama means lowest and Sura means of the demigod. So you are the lowest of the demigod. So Prabhupada writes in the word-to-word meaning, Sura Adhama as the lowest of the demigod, but in the translation Prabhupada is writing, O best of the demigods. And then he is explaining in the purport the 5 words that the demon is using, what he is using it for, but what it is becoming unintentionally, unknowingly. So the first word which the demon uses in this purport, it is Vanagocharaha. This from the previous verse which Prabhupada is writing in this commentary. Now Vanagocharaha is amphibious, just a creature from the water, or it could also mean, as Prabhupada says, Vanagocharaha, one who is a resident of forest. Another meaning of Vanagocharaha is one who is a resident of forest. For example, he addressed him as Vanagochara, which means one who is a resident of forest. But another meaning of Vanagocharaha is one who lies on the water. So Vishnu lies on the water. So it is that meaning which is unintentionally actually coming out. Not as an amphibious beast or one who is just a resident of forest. Of course he is also a resident of forest. But actually the meaning is one who lies on the water. The second unintentional word that he uses to actually blaspheme him is Mrigaha. Mrigaha is used here as beast. In the word-to-word meaning it is used as beast. But actually, Mrigaha, he's calling out beast, but actually the meaning that is coming out is Mrigaha, indicating unintentionally that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is sought after by great sages, saintly persons, and transcendentalists. So this is the meaning that is coming out. Then the third word he uses, you are Agna. Agna means a fool, or one who has, Prabhupada uses the word, O fool. Jnana means knowledge, Ajnana means, no knowledge, O fool. Now how Agna is represented, Agna, you break up A and Gna. So Gna means knowledge. And Agna means no knowledge, right? So Sridhar Swami is writing, there is no knowledge which is unknown to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that is why, so Krishna is the Vedanta Krit Veda Vicham, I am the knower, I am the compiler of Vedas, I am everything, Mattaha Parataram Nanyat, there is no truth superior to me. All the Vedas were breathed out by the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord is He is the Supreme Absolute Truth. So Agna means Krishna who possesses all the knowledge. So that is how Agna is used. Then Suradhama, as we discussed, Sura means the demigods, and Adhama, another meaning of Adhama means the Lord of all that is. So Krishna or Bor is not the worst of the demigods, but the best of the demigods, Lord of all that is. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is saying, Name viduhu suraganaha prabhavam na maharshayah aham adirhi devanam maharshinam cha sarvashaha. I am the origin of all the demigods and all the rishis and all the sages. They do not know me, they do not know my origin, and they do not know my opulences. For in every respect, I am the origin of all of them. So Suradhama is that. And in the end, the fifth word that Prabhupada uses, the demon is saying, how can you take it away? How can you take away this earth in my presence without being hurt by me? So, in my presence is the word that the phrase is used, in my presence. So Prabhupada is writing that the implied meaning or the unintentional meaning that comes out of it is that you are completely in spite. He uses in my presence, how can you take away the earth? So the meaning is, in spite of my presence, my dear Lord Bor, you are able to take away the earth. So unless you are able to take away this earth from our custody, there can be no good fortune for us. So in other words, Prabhupada is saying that in spite of my presence, oh my Lord, you are taking away the earth for us. You are taking away the earth from us because the Lord is protecting the earth. The earth has fallen into the Garbhodaka ocean, and the demon doesn't want. The demon is saying the earth belongs to me, but the unintentional meaning that is coming out of it is, yes, you have to take away the earth away from us. Only then there can be good fortune for us, because the Lord is going to protect the earth, and the demon is his aim is to destroy the earth. So this way we see how the demon, although he is trying to deride the Lord, unintentionally he is actually praising the Lord. And Prabhupada just leaves this purport like this. He comments, this is what Sridhar Swami is saying, and this is his analysis. So, just like the demon, he is actually trying to deride the Lord, but unintentionally he is praising. In the same way, when we are chanting the holy names of the Lord, and if we chant it even unintentionally, there is going to be so much benefit. Right in the beginning of Bhagavatam, in the first chapter, in the first canto, first chapter, this verse, it talks about how unconsciously this demon, Hiranyaksha, was unconsciously saying all these things, calling out to the Lord, but it has become like this. So, in the first canto, first chapter, Apannah samshrutim ghoram yan nama vivasho grinam tatah sadyo vimucheta yad bibheti swayam bhayam. The sages are being told by Shaunaka Rishi, living beings, apannah samshrutim ghoram. Samshruti means in the hurdle of birth and death, ghoram, too complicated. In this complicated mesh, in the cycle of birth and death, they are all entangled. Apannaha. Yan nama vivasha grinam. Yan nama means the holy name of Krishna. Grinam means if we chant. How if we chant? Vivasha means unconsciously. The intention is not that, to chant his name, but unconsciously, unintentionally we chant. Just like the best example is Ajamila. Unconsciously he chanted the name of Lord Narayana, and you see what result he attained. He was freed, he was given another birth, and he went back to Godhead after that. So, if we chant Vivasha unconsciously, even unintentionally, Tata Sadya Vimucheta, we will get freedom. When will we get freedom? How? Sadya means at once. Immediately we will get freedom. Again, the best example is Ajamila. Yad bibheti swayam bhayam. Living beings will get if we chant the holy names of Krishna, who's fear personified for even, fear himself. So living beings who are entangled in the complicated meshes of birth and death can be freed immediately by even unconsciously chanting the holy names of Krishna, which is feared by fear personified. So this is the potency of chanting the holy names of Lord Krishna. So that's why Prabhupada says, anywhere, anytime, just go on chanting the holy names of Krishna. The whole goal of life is yena tena prakarena mana Krishna niveshayet. Somehow or the other, try to keep Krishna in your mind. Sarva vidhi niseda. And all the scriptures are just talking this. All the instructions that is given in the scriptures and the Shastras are huge. The Vedas, the Puranas, the Upanishads, the Itihasas, it's huge. It's like so voluminous. But all the sum and substance of all these scriptural instructions is just two. Somehow or the other, remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. Consciously or unconsciously. See, so wonderful it is. Our scriptures have given us the essence of everything. And the essence just boils down to these two simple instructions. So many times Prabhupada said that, if this is what Bhagavatam is saying, that even by unconsciously chanting the holy name, you get so much benefit. Imagine what benefit you will get if you consciously chant. And if you think of the Lord and chant, we are chanting 16 rounds every day. How much benefit we are getting? But the difference is, it is little delayed. Because, of course, this quality also matters. But unconsciously also the benefit will happen. Consciously if you chant, the benefit is unimaginable. Just like it says, Namno hi yavati shaktihi papa niraharane harehe tavat kartum na shaknoti patakam pataki naraha. That is unconscious chanting. Conscious chanting, it is said that by chanting one holy name of Krishna, Namnaha means one name. If you chant just one name consciously, offenselessly, Papa nirharane harehe. Papa means the sinful reactions that we have. Nirharane means the sinful reactions has to be removed from us. It is said the potency of chanting one holy name is so much that patakam pataki naraha, an expert sinner cannot commit that many sins in his entire lifetime that one holy name cannot counteract. And that is why Rupa Goswami is saying that when he's chanting, because he's chanting on a pure platform, and that is why he's saying that when he chants the holy name, just one name, Hari, it is giving him so much pleasure that he's thinking, why Krishna has given me only one mouth? I feel like having millions of mouths. And the hearing of this name is so sweet, so nectarian, that he feels that I should have billions of ears to hear. Then he would actually do some justice in chanting the holy name. So here we see the holy name right from an unconscious, unintentional chanting to this stage. So basically this says that, it goes on to say that we should just be absorbed, immersed, name ruchihi. Jive doya name ruchi. This is what Bhaktivinoda Thakur says. The whole goal of life is how to somehow develop some taste for this holy name and somehow make an arrangement that I'm always conscious of the Lord and I'm always chanting of the holy name. I'm always chanting His name. We want to know God, right? The goal of life is to know God. The best way to know God is by chanting the holy name. Prabhupada gives a very nice example of how to know God. Suppose you want to know one person. How will you know him? There are two ways to know a person. One way to know a person, if I want to know about you, I'll go on speculating about you. I will think, okay, you may be having this business, you may be like this, you may be like that, you may be this, your nature must be like this. I may go on speculating in so many ways about you, and that will all be my speculation. I will never be able to know you properly. Because it's all my speculation, my senses are defective, and you are a different person, I am a different person. So which is the best way to know you? I try to know you from you. Isn't that the best way? But if I have to know you from you, you have to reveal yourself fully to me. Unless and until you reveal yourself to me, I will not know you. And for you to reveal yourself to me fully, I should have developed some friendship with you, some intimacy with you. Unless I develop that intimacy, some friendship with you, you will not reveal yourself to me. But that's the best way to know you fully. So, if I become your friend, and I agree, I start liking you, I start liking your instructions, I start developing faith and trust in you, you will see, yes, he likes me, he loves me, and you will reveal yourself to me. In the same way, if you want to know God, the best way to know God is develop a relationship, develop a loving relationship with God. And then when you develop a loving relationship with God, God will reveal Himself to you completely. And that's the best way and the easiest way to know God. Not that we start speculating, we start reading this, we start reading that, we start asking different people. No. Know God from God Himself or from a bona fide representative of God. And the best way to know, just like in this friendship case, you develop friendship with Him, so you develop friendship with God. And developing friendship with God means just follow God's instructions. And God's instructions are so simple in the scriptures, just chant my holy name. And by chanting this holy name, God is ready to reveal Himself to you. And when God reveals Himself to us, then we will be able to relish God, just like Rupa Goswami is relishing. We have actually no idea who God is, how beautiful God is. Just like we are so eager to know someone or to see something which is very beautiful, right? Now that eagerness to know God is not there, to see God is not there, because you have no idea who God is. But God is so beautiful, so beautiful, that once you understand God and you see God, you'll be so attached to Him. Just like Dhruva Maharaj, just by chanting, he saw God. And when he saw the beautiful form of the Lord, he forgot everything. He said, Lord, now I don't want anything. I just want you, and you are in front of me. And I'm relishing an extraordinary beauty. I was thinking that I was actually searching for pieces of broken glass, but I found the most valuable jewel. How beautiful Lord is described in the Bhagavatam very nicely. We usually use to describe the Lord's beauty, we use lotus. Right? Lotus is very beautiful. Now, the lotus becomes even more beautiful when it is surrounded by a swarm of bees, humming bees. Imagine a lotus, right? It's very beautiful. Imagine a lotus surrounded by humming bees. Isn't that even more beautiful? So that increases the beauty of the lotus. The beauty further increases when the lotus, after being surrounded by humming bees, also has two beautiful fishes around it. So it's not just a lotus plucked out of the water. It's a lotus on the pond. And on the pond, the lotus is surrounded by humming bees, and there are two fishes circling the lotus, or inside somewhere around the lotus. Then the beauty, Bhagavatam says, of the lotus becomes even greater. And in the Bhagavatam it is mentioned that the lotus face of the Lord, the beauty of the lotus face of the Lord, the face of the Lord is compared to the lotus, and the black curly hair around His face are the black swarming bees, and His two beautiful eyes are the two fishes. And the Bhagavatam says that this beautiful face of the Lord, it is so beautiful that it actually defies the natural beauty of the lotus itself. So such is the beauty of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which can actually be relished by chanting the holy names of the Lord. You will come to that stage of realization God will reveal himself to us, and that is actually the goal of life. So always we should be very conscious that how we can somehow or the other remember the Lord in whatever activities we are doing. Prabhupada says somehow we have to organize our activity, our daily activity throughout the day in such a way that we do not forget the Lord. And that is the goal of life. So here, these are some of the things mentioned, the purport, how the demon unconsciously chanted the holy name, mentioned, addressed the Lord in some verses which actually unintentionally meant the holy, to glorify the Lord. So this is the potency of unconscious, unintentional glorifying the Lord. We can just imagine how much potent conscious glorifying the Lord is. So we must all become very serious in our chanting, very sincere in our glorification, in our hearing, in our Shravanam and Kirtanam, and by this way we can very easily advance in spiritual life. We'll end here. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Nitai Gaur Premananda.